Willie D Live.
What's up, family? If it's your first time checking out the show, let me know what city, what state you're coming in from. If you're outside of the U.S., let me know what country you represent. Throw up your flag. Family, it's the final countdown. Closing arguments in the Diddy case. The trial is now in the books after an explosive day in court, with the defense taking aim at Cassie and Jane and prosecutors getting the last word. Diddy's defense attorney, Mark Agnifilo, put on a big show handling the defense's closing arguments all by himself, getting dramatic and theatrical as he paced before the jury and explained why he feels the charges against his client are bogus. With Diddy's family watching from the gallery, Agnifilo told jurors Diddy was a victim of the government's bedroom policing, and he warned us all we could be next to face charges if the feds don't like the way we have sex, as he says was the case with Diddy. Joining us now is attorney Dennis Sperling, who, by the way, has been following the case very carefully and slowly and cautiously, and all of the above. Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm good, man. What's happening, Willie D? Man, it's always good to be here with you, brother.
Thank you, man. Thank you. So, man, let's get right into it. How are you feeling about the evidence that the prosecution brought forward and how the defense, basically, do you think the defense held its own?
Well, I mean, the defense does not have an obligation in a criminal prosecution. The burden is on the state to prove the case. Now, I'm gonna preface this. I'm gonna say I don't feel they proved the case, but I'm gonna jump ahead. Let me, because I know some people in like, how dare you? He's a horrible man. This P. Diddy, the type of sex he had was horrible. He should. Okay, so he's a butthole. Okay, he's a freak. Right. But is that a crime? So let's get down to the nitty gritty. So they dropped 3 charges. They dropped the kidnapping, they dropped the arson, they dropped the aiding and abetting sex trafficking.
Okay.
Normally at any prosecution, any state prosecution, federal prosecution, what's going to happen is the government is not going to proceed. They're going to do that. That's standard procedure. They feel like, well, we got them on the remaining 5 charges. We don't need to do that, and we don't want to have to try to prove that up, and we don't want that to come back and bite us. But that's standard procedure for them to narrow the case to focus on what was the strongest and best supported by the evidence. Now, if you want to just go line by line and break this thing down, I don't think RICO was ever appropriate for this case. And I said it a long time ago. RICO requires an ongoing organization. Okay, it could be formal, it could be informal, and it has to have its own decision making, its own structure. It has to be part of the defendant's day-to-day thing. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But in this particular case, we don't have that. Okay, no single prosecution witness said I was in Combs Enterprise and here's how it worked. You have former federal prosecutors stressing that there's an absence of any admitted co-conspirator. How can you have a conspiracy with one person, Willie D? You see?
Right.
And then when we will move on to a pattern of racketeering activity. Here you have the prosecutor withdrawing the attempted kidnapping, the attempted arson, the aiding and abetting sex trafficking theories. And what that's going to do is going to make the jury now has far fewer acts for the jurors to pair into the required pattern. Okay. The other thing is there has to be some sort of nexus between the racketeering acts and the enterprise. And so each RICO predicate it must be conducted through or in the furtherance of an enterprise. Okay. And what the defense did brilliantly was they highlighted that, the assistants testified that the sex parties was like 1% of their job. This man is a music mogul. This man is an entertainment mogul. This is not something that they did as their primary means of operation. This is not the Italian mob. We're not talking about the Bananos, the Colombo family, the Gambino family, the Genovese family, the Lucchese family. These people had criminal enterprise. This is how they made their money. This is why RICO was invented in the first place, because for those of you guys who are history buffs, remember, if you are a boss of one of the 5 families, you're sitting at the top of a pyramid. Stuff is getting done and money is getting kicked up. Your capos are dealing with it. The soldiers are dealing with it. The associates are dealing with it. You give the word or you give the nod and something happens. Somebody across the nation dies. The money gets picked up from a business through an extortion racket. You're never touched. So without this RICO proving that there was a joint collaboration, this was actually the octopus, and the head of the organization was the head of the octopus, and the tentacles reached out, then you have nothing. And so that's why they came up, they authored this RICO law, and they specifically look for enterprise. The most you can say about P. Diddy is that he's a freak. Okay,
super freak.
That's what you could say. But I at the end of the day, I'm sure there's a mighty percentage of people in this chat room right now who have done some things that they might not necessarily want the world to know. So I don't think that. Look, Frank, and I hate predicting, but I think it was a bad case. I think it was politically motivated. Damian Williams, who was the head of the Southern District of New York prosecution, he got out of there as soon as Trump got in office because he knew he was going to be fired. I think this was more somebody trying to make a name for themselves. And now you got the people who are left holding the bag. They don't want to just dismiss it. So now they want to just go forward with it. But I don't think that they are full-throated with this prosecution. But that would be my opening salvo. So I hope that answers your question. But
yeah, it did. But why do you think that sometimes you ask the questions that you know the answer to, but you want to hear it anyway. I just want to make sure that that our thoughts are aligned here. Why do you think that the prosecution dropped the arson and the kidnapping? They say they dropped these charges so that they can have clarity while explaining the instructions to the jury as they deliberate. But why do you think they dropped the kidnapping and the arson and many of the sex charges?
Because they were going to lose, brother. They couldn't prove that. So, I mean, and once the jury gets on the roll, they're back. Imagine the jury sitting back there with these complicated forms trying to figure out which one of these charges is going to stick. And they're like, that wasn't ours. And the next thing you know, they're on a roll, and that confuses the rest of them. Because it's like we said, no to this. We might as well say no to the rest of them. They dropped them because they had in lawyer language, we can't prove this. This is going to be too difficult to prove. Let's just go ahead and get rid of the weak links right now. We came at this situation with a shotgun instead of a sniper rifle anyway. So let's just go ahead and narrow it the best we can, and because we can't prove it anyway, we don't want to take this type of L. That's why they couldn't prove it. I mean, it's pretty obvious. They couldn't prove it, brother.
It's like they're in the middle of a RICO. It's like, we got them. We coming in with the jets. We coming in. They came in by land, sea, and air to get Diddy, right?
Yes, they did.
They got simultaneous raids going on for his properties on multiple coasts.
Oh man,
and putting it all, coming out with big boxes of stuff and all this. We're gonna get RICO, and they go through all of this trouble and to prove RICO, and it seemed like they got in the middle of it. They coming down the home stretch and they realize, look, we really haven't proved RICO. So let's just take some of this RICO stuff out of here. It's still RICO, but let's take some of the stuff out of here that we was really, really hard on him about, and let them focus on some of the more simpler things like, okay, traffic. What did he call it?
Sex trafficking. Yeah, these
trafficking. But the official term that they used was where they call it something for transportation for the purpose of prostitution.
So that falls under the Mann Act. And if you remember, there was a great fighter way back in the day. And he used to have a lot of white women with him. You know, he had beautiful, fine white women, and the people back then were not very friendly when it comes to racial issues. And they said, we cannot have this big buff black man transporting these black women, these white women across state lines. So we just gonna label it prostitution and put him in jail, or the Mann Act. It was created specifically for Jack Johnson. Now, here's what I want you to, I don't think those people ever conceptualized that that in the future, people will be able to look on Backpage or whatever things they're doing and call up male prostitutes. I do not think that they contemplated that Diddy would be using male prostitutes. In this particular situation, I'm just gonna say it does not seem like sex trafficking. And if you talk to, and I'm just gonna tell you, if you speak to judges, if you speak to lawyers, and I have some very prominent judge friends and federal friends, they look at this case and say, look, I don't know what the jury's gonna do, but as a judge and as a jurist, I know when women are being coerced to have sex against their will. I'm working on a case right now, and I think I sent you a little bit, the case out of East St. Louis, where I filed a lawsuit against two very prominent African-American organizations because a young woman was SA'd and then she ended up unaliving herself as a result of the trauma. That was not consensual. But when I look at some of these women saying, oh, I love Diddy, and I stay here because I don't want another woman to come take my place in the freak offs, I don't think anybody in their right mind believes 100% that those ladies, those lovely ladies, were not there because they wanted to be. They were there for the money, they were there for the fame, they were there for the clout. This is what the lawyers and the judges are saying behind the scene. Many of them probably would not be brave enough to come on your broadcast and say that in public because it could affect their reputation. But behind the scenes, this is what we're all saying because we've seen it 100 times if we've seen it once. Mm-hmm. So that's what we think.
What's the one piece of evidence that could make or break this case for Diddy?
I mean, the fact that Cassie was having freak offs by herself, and so was arranging freak offs and threatening to unalive somebody if she let loose, if they found out that she was involved in a freak off, and the fact that she stayed with this man for year after year after year after year. This is clearly some domestic violence going on in that. He should have been prosecuted for domestic violence. Prosecuting him under RICO, you know, as a racketeering conspiracy, this is just overkill. And it's almost like trying to kill a gnat with a sledgehammer. That device is not going to work on this. You see, This is a small domestic matter. You're policing this man's bedroom and his sexual habits. And I'm surprised that we don't have people from the Rainbow Coalition of America jumping in and say, hold on. And the defense smartly pointed out the fact, once they get out of P. Diddy's bedroom, they're going to jump in yours. Now, I don't agree with the man's activity. I don't agree with anything he's done. But even from the beginning, this is overkill. And look, Willie, I mean, we have to look at the fact that race plays a part in this. I mean, I don't want to offend anybody, okay? But there are plenty of freaks in Hollywood that do all sorts of freaky stuff, okay? But the fact that they raided this man's house in Miami, he was prosecuted and tried and convicted in the court of public opinion before there was ever any evidence. And now when we look at the case, it's just crap. Now, here's another thing. They probably dropped some of those charges because even if he was convicted on those charges, at the point, this man has enough money to appeal it, and an appellate court might say this is trash, and you know it's trash, and you shouldn't have let it in. That's where I'm at with this man. That's what I think.
How unusual is it for the prosecution to take such an aggressive stance in their closing arguments?
I mean, the fact that they don't. Okay, so in the practice of the law, if you got bad facts, then what you want to do is you want to try. You don't want to try the law. You want to try the defendant. he's a bad man because your facts don't fit the charges that you're trying to prove. So we just gonna prove he's a bad person and hope the jury doesn't like him as much as we want them not to like him. So they'll just find him guilty of something so they can save face.
Yeah, I feel that. I've been saying that the entire time. Yeah. It's like I thought the defense did a pretty good job at defending Diddy. But in your opinion, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a moment here. What strategy do you think that Diddy's legal team mishandled?
I think they should have not played so soft with some of the prosecution's witnesses. I think they should have done a lot more. They should have spent a lot more money in private investigators. And I'm not saying they did a bad job, but if we go back to O.J. Simpson, okay, we just remember you had Barry Scheck and Johnny Cochran flying all the way out to South Carolina procuring that video and telephone recorded evidence for that crooked cop that was saying the N-word every which way, which basically, turned over the case. Once we found out this person had said that, and I don't want to say his name because, everybody's watching. But once the jury found out he said the N-word 1,100 times, and you looking at the jury pool, they like, well, we can't trust anything this man said. Now we see why there's chemicals in the blood, blood preservatives in the blood that's supposed to be fresh from the scene that they didn't find 2 weeks later. They should have done a better job of doing background on all of these people. And like I say, I've been practicing law for 25 years. In fact, my dad practiced law for almost 40 years. So you have got to do your homework. You've got to go out to the scene. You've got to spend as much money doing investigation on everybody that the defendant, that the prosecution witnesses has. You need to know everything about these people. And I think they should have done a lot more intel, if you will. And if they did that, a lot more information would have come out, in my opinion. But that's not, they try their case like they want to. I guess we have to see what happens.
Okay, so closing arguments are over. Is there anything at the last minute the prosecution can come back and say, oh yeah, by the way, Judge, we want to put this on the mind of the jurors? They rested their case in chief, and the defense rested their case in chief. Very rarely, and I'm not saying it can't be done, but very rarely will the judge then open the case back up and allow more information to come in. As far as I know, this case is going on Monday. They're going to be deliberating, and I'm interested in the questions that the jury will ask the judge. They may ask to see more evidence. They may ask for clarification on jury charges, and this is going to let us know what's on the jury's mind or what questions they have. Okay. So it's just going to be interesting to find out. And remember, we need a unanimous verdict at this point, considering that the Supreme Court came back and reestablished that you need a unanimous verdict. So no more 11-1. It's got to go all. So we'll have to see what happens, Willie D. What's your read on the jury? Any signs of leaning one way?
Well, the thing about juries is you don't get the jurors you want, you get the jurors that's left. You see? And so I don't know.
You heard that expression. Yeah, right.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know, brother. We'll have to read them. I was not in the courtroom. I didn't get a chance to get a read on each one of the jurors' expressions when information came up. But I mean, they heard enough. And here's what I found over the years. By the time you get to the closing arguments, the jurors have already made up their mind. They don't look, people do not leave their strongly held beliefs at the courthouse door. They come in there, all right? They feel how they feel about life and experiences. They may just see Diddy as a villain. And then you have other people in there who just see the government as a villain. And you have other people who say, you know what, this isn't they're infringing on his rights. I don't like this and I don't like the direction it's gonna go. You're not gonna change that. Now, we ask jurors to follow the law, but when you get in that room and you have those conversations, at some point somebody might hold out for long enough, but then they're like, you know what? It's Friday and it's 4:45. What do y'all need me to do so we can get out of here? You see what I mean? So, hey, man, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But whatever happens, this is going to set a precedent. And I think people across America who live alternative lifestyles or who have money and they can use that money to coerce people to do things. Even you could be a plumber. You could be a plumber and you might have some issues, man, the way this thing is going.
Yeah, this is what you do. You say you've been doing this for 25 years, and even before that, I'm sure you visited some courtrooms. So you've been in these courtroom situations for hundreds of times, if not thousands of times.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything in the judge's behavior that made you look at him and say that he's probably going to, the verdict is probably going this way or that way?
Well, let me say, judges are supposed to be impartial, but they're still human beings. He's not unlike any other judge that I've been in front of. I was recently in front of a judge in a local state court, and I do my best to stay out of state court. I focus on federal court mostly, but I could swear up and down this guy he just got elected. I'm like, this guy's just a horrible, evil man. But, after I got a read on him, he's like, no, he just wants his case out of his court. That's what it is. So he's mean to everybody. Mm-hmm. And it may seem as though they're biased, but remember, the judge there's a clerk and another clerk and a person there who is recording everything. And those people want to leave at 5. And the judge knows them and he has to see them. He's extra sensitive to what the jury is dealing with. He sees some of them up there nodding, going to sleep. This man, a woman, is a politician first because they want to get reelected. And so they're conscious of everything that's going on in the courtroom. And their job is to basically act as a referee at that time and keep what they're supposed to be doing is making sure that we're not wasting the taxpayers' resources and keeping this as an orderly deliberation so that we can get folks in and out. Okay. So sometimes you may read, as an advocate, you may read something wrong. That particular case, I end up getting my client $500,000. And it's like, well, thank you, Judge, for being mean to everybody, even if that included me. So, again, I'm not going to hold now there are some judges who are just straight up ridiculous and biased. We can read their history books with those type of folks. But for the most part, most of these modern day judges are pretty, not all of them, but most of them are pretty middle of the road as far as how they operate, because there's a spotlight on you, and everybody knows.
And that's what I kind of saw out of this judge. He seemed like he was like kind of right there in the middle, and he kind of kept it going. He kept it pushing. It wasn't no like long delays. It was like in, out, boom, bam, boom. Considering all of that, could that be? Could the outcome of this trial, have some effect on the way that high-profile clients and celebrities are held or dealt with in the future in terms of being indicted for crimes like this?
Well, here's the thing, man. A lot of these prosecutors are game hunting. They're big game hunting. They're in it for the they're in it for the prosecution. Now, I'm not saying P. Diddy is not guilty of something. If this was a domestic violence case, I would say guilty 100%, because based on the video footage that I saw, and of course, I don't know, some people are saying it was altered or whatever, but what I saw a man in a towel pummeling a woman on the ground. I saw that. Now, I do understand that she was able to reach a settlement for upwards of $20 million. And if she's satisfied with it, fine. He's guilty of something, in my opinion. But the RICO charges, it's just overkill. Now, again, there was a time when we thought that our celebrities had some sort of, some sort of celebrity privilege. But now I think that prosecutors are of the opinion that we're just going to go game hunting. You see, and the bigger you are as a celebrity, if we can take you down, then we will. I had a law professor many years ago back in law school. And she said, these prosecutors pull up in their Ford Taurus, with their little, $100 briefcase, and here you come in your expensive German car, and you got a lot of money, you looking good. They're angry with you. Okay, so if they can put you down, if they can use the power of the state that they have behind them to arrest you, they will. You see, we got Willie D. He's a famous, world-renowned artist and podcaster, and they have none of that. You see, and so they're gonna they're gonna go game hunting on you. So all you artists and entertainers out there, this is not the 1970s where you can, pop pills and snort this and smoke that. These people are looking at you, and so it seems like we have a changing dynamic in how prosecutors operate. I mean, I'm just saying, look at it. Why are we prosecuting some guy who hopped out of a car and ran 6 blocks to get away from a woman, and he still got convicted? Why is that? Why is it that we're putting an old man in jail who's almost 80 years old for allegedly giving a woman nothing more than some cough drops? You see, I mean, why are we doing that? Because they're big game hunting, in my opinion. This is what I see.
I want to go back to what you said about, in your opinion, he did something. And I think you said he's guilty of something. In most people's opinion, Diddy is guilty of something. Yeah. However, what the prosecution is alleging he's guilty of, he's not guilty of, as far as what they're trying to charge him with and convict him of. But do you think that, just like you and I think that he's guilty of something, that sentiment could roll over into a juror's decision, and the jurors say, you know what, he didn't do any of the stuff that they said. Maybe he didn't do any of the stuff that they're saying he did, but he beat up Cassie, so I'm voting guilty.
Yeah, he's guilty of immorality. But as far as a law that has been broken as listed under RICO, I don't see where there's a conspiracy. I don't see the RICO predicates necessary. Yeah, he's if I can curse, he's an asshole. Okay, that's what he is. He's an asshole. I think we can say that, but that we plenty of people like that out there. That doesn't mean the man should go to jail for the rest of his life. Yeah.
What's the risk of a mistrial or hung jury?
Well, hung jury, we can try it again. Mistrial is something that you can try it, but I don't think the judge is going to grant a motion for mistrial. At worst, you get a hung jury, and then you got to go back to round 2. The only way he's out of this is if he's acquitted. And so, what will it happen? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Are there grounds for appeal? Invariably, in any criminal matter, there are always grounds for appeal. And when you have a man who's worth nearly $1 billion, then he's probably going to appeal. So they better dot all their I's and cross all their T's, because this could go on for years. Now, will he? I'm gonna just tell you, I didn't like the fact that they put the man in prison and he's been in jail for this time. I don't like that. I mean, I don't like that. And that let me know from the onset that this was political. And it had a lot to do with the attorney who was in charge of the Southern District at the time. And I think he was, like I said, he was trying to make a name for himself. And then they thought that, the Democrats were going to win and he was going to maintain his position. And then the Republicans won with the current President Trump, and he knew he was out of there, so he had to let it go. This is my theory. And now we're in a situation where they're left basically trying a case that they probably would have never brought in the first place.
Yeah, and man, you killing it, man. You are killing it. But what does sentencing realistically look like if Diddy is convicted?
Oh, he's going to jail for the rest of his life. How old is Diddy? 60 now? He's almost 60.
You don't think they give him 15?
Huh?
You don't think they give him 15 years? You think they'll go straight for life?
I think he's gonna be there until he dies. I mean, the brother's almost 60 years old. The average black man lives to be 68. So
well, there's rumors that Trump is going to pardon Diddy if Diddy is convicted.
Well, you never know what what a Trump could, that would be his authority to do that. I don't see how that would be politically advantageous for Donald Trump. Now, again, Trump pardons a lot of people for a lot of different reasons, but I can't see him pardoning him immediately. Maybe towards the end of his presidency, maybe. I don't see what my studies and my assessment of Donald Trump is that he does what's beneficial for himself. Okay, and I mean, look, whoever you voted for, fine, but my assessment is that he does what's beneficial and what's convenient. Whether you like him, whether you hate his guts, I don't care. I'm just looking at it, and that's not unlike any other president. But I don't see where this benefits President Trump to pardon P. Diddy at this particular juncture, and especially considering how heinous the crimes are and how Trump himself was. He had to go through his own sort of, I guess, I don't want to refer to it as any sort of sexual assault because he sued somebody for that. But President Trump had to deal with this. And so him pardoning P. Diddy would just give more ammunition to the Democrats to say, see, look at him. He's a despicable, horrible man. And he pardoned somebody who's just like him. So I don't see the benefit of that. Go ahead.
I don't see Trump giving a damn about what the Democrats think. He only cares about what his base thinks. He don't care nothing about what Democrats think. Let me ask you this: if Diddy does walk, do you think the public will see this as privilege, or do you think they would see it as justice? And does that matter in court?
My gosh, man, you are asking me these philosophical questions. Some people are gonna say it's privilege. Some people are gonna say he's an entertainer, he's rich, he has privilege. They're gonna rely on that same old thing. But man, I walk in the court all the time, and people who are dirt poor get second and third chances. I mean, I was in court yesterday, and there's a person who got charged with 21 counts. Okay, they got convicted of 5, and the judge let him walk this time, and this person is dirt poor. You see what I'm saying? Generally, and if you really want me to dig into it, I'll tell you. Let me tell you what's really going on. What's really going on, Willie D, is that jail is filled up, okay? And there's a certain capacity in that jail. And the longer you hold these people in that jail, the more money it costs that county. And that county is like, look, we need to plea and get these people out of here, okay? Whether we always talk about how many people go to jail, but the truth is we let a lot more people go because we don't have the capacity or the money to house these people. And this is why they put the prison industrial complex in private business. Like maybe somebody could make some money off this. The government can't continue to fund this. You see, and so they taking pleas. Oh, look, let's take a plea here, pay us some money. That's why they're so serious about this fees. I committed a crime. Why am I paying $5,000 to the state? Because we need that money. We need to get that money out of you. You see what I'm saying? Right. And so in a situation like this, man, when you have somebody who is worth all this money and they got a bankroll and they're going to fight you, you don't necessarily even have, and I hate to say it, but we don't necessarily have a resource for it. This was not an easy kill. I don't know what's going to happen. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, this country, again, you're killing it, man. You said this is not an easy kill because he has resources. Because this country, let's just call it what it is. Let's call it striking the ball a ball. Mm-hmm. This country does not lock up billionaires. They do not. If you got a billion racks, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can buy some freedom. You can buy some justice. You can buy some human beings. And I ain't saying that's what he over there doing. But I'm just saying, like, when you got that money, because the government got unlimited resources. And if you can match that, the government be like, man, you know what? Can we just?
Well, I'm gonna push back. The government does not have unlimited resources, brother. The government is on a budget. And let me tell you what else. When you're behind the scenes, those state prosecutors and government workers, they like to go home at 5. Okay, they are not the people who are out there eating what they kill. See, there was a reason we referred to the O.J. Simpson case as the Dream Team, because at that particular case, Marsha Clark and the rest of those folks at the L.A. District Attorney's Office, they were used to pushovers. They had the lawyers that came in there with the soft shoes on and the sport coat. They didn't have those land sharks like Johnny Cochran and Barry Scheck. They didn't have to deal with that on a daily basis.
Yeah.
My dad, rest his soul, he passed away in 2021. Actually, you were one of his clients. I remember when we had his office down on 1600 Smith. I remember when you walked into the office. I was a young kid at that point. You had a hat on. You walked. I'm like, oh, that's Willie D. That's when you was, was doing your thing.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, man, I remember we tried a criminal case in Dallas, and it was just a misdemeanor, and he was doing it for one of his college friends, and the misdemeanor lawyers were like, they were just so awestruck by it because the way my dad was moving. And by then he had done capital murder cases back in the 80s, back when Harris County was really a hard place to be a black man in a criminal prosecution. It was real difficult. And so they were like, wow. And so he got that not guilty verdict, and the DAs came up and shook his hands after, like, man, that was amazing. We rarely get lawyers like you down here. And I'm like, all right, cool. So what I'm saying is, when you are able to pay for a high caliber, experienced lawyer, when you're able to put up $500,000, $600,000, $2 million, you got $500,000 set up for your investigators, and you're going to get the justice that you can pay for. Now, if you just some Joe Blow off the street with a prosecutor, and your mama had to put the house up to raise the bail money, you probably gonna go to jail. You're gonna go to jail, Willie D. Yeah, I hate to say it like that.
Say, man, so did you give me a prediction on what you think? You said you don't think that the government proved their case. That's
no, I don't think they. I think we can all agree that P. Diddy is amoral. I don't think, based on you never know what a jury's can do, but I don't think, based on my understanding of RICO, that this meets the standard of RICO. This guy is not a Genovese crime boss. He's an entertainer. He's a producer who held some freak offs with some male prostitutes and some female girlfriend, paramours, whatever. Everybody seemed to be paid for it. He called up the prostitutes when he arrived, male and female. Yeah, P. Diddy's a freak. I would say that.
Does this meet the Mann Act?
If he is transporting women or men across state lines for the purpose of prostitution, then yeah, loosely it is the Mann Act. But was he even charged with that? Because
what if they're transporting themselves?
See, there's a whole nother look, man. Anytime, let me speak it like this. Hey, baby, why don't you come down? I got that Southwest flight for you, man. Come on down from, you over there in Arizona. Come on through. And, I take you down to the Galleria. We can hang out a little bit. That technically could be a violation of the Mann Act of getting flued out. Do they still say that term, getting flued out? And taking it to get some red bottoms at the Galleria Mall is technically a violation of the Mann Act. So, even that is vague. That's why I said the original writers of the Mann Act did not contemplate how we would be living almost, 100 years later. That's what I think.
Yeah. Well, I think you knocked it out the park tonight, man. You gave us a lot of insight, man, and understanding on how this thing goes. And as usual, you knocked it out. I'm not really surprised, man. Man, you a beast, though. Man, I got to get you on the show a little bit more often, man. You got to come on more often, man, because like you be clicking on all cylinders all the time, bro. You got this law thing down pat.
Yeah, man. It's in my blood. I do seriously. I take what I do very seriously, and I'm in the prime of my legal career. I'm not a young lawyer. I'm not an old lawyer. I'm in the prime. So now I'm at the point where I'm involved in cases worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And, and I told you about the case earlier, and It's a horrible case where I'm now having to sue Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated and Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated for some alleged activity that should never have taken place, because a young lady at the end of an excruciating hazing process, she died by self-deleting herself. And so, you know, it's a very serious matter. And I'm always, you know, 100% focused on my clients. And, you know, and in that regard, I have an opportunity to really learn a lot about life, learn a lot about what I see. And, you know, at this particular juncture in my life, there are no curtains. I see it all. You see, I see the good, I see the bad in humanity. And, you know, I appreciate my growth, and I appreciate the good people, you know, who allow me to represent them, you know, and you know, you try to maintain a good attitude about it. You got to keep your sense of humor. But yeah, man, I'm in my bag right now, brother. I'm doing my thing, baby. I think my people will be proud of me. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Mississippi. Yeah.
Somebody in the comments said something about you doing comedy or something.
Really, me?
Comedy? You never do comedy, right?
No, I don't do comedy, man. I just do the law. If you've been in a wreck, I'll get you a check. If you get hit from the back, I can help you with that. You get in the crash, let me help you get some cash. Dennis Spurley. You can reach me at 713-229-0770, man. Y'all hit me up. But yeah, you know, man, I appreciate you, B. I love to come on your show, man. You're such a gift to us all, man. Thank you so much. You take it from the street to the corporate level. And that's what I'm talking about, man. I appreciate it, brother.
Absolutely.
Somebody said, "Where's my mason jar?" It's right here, baby. Sip of water. Oh, man.
Ladies and gentlemen, attorney Dennis Spurley.
Right,
appreciate you, man.
No problem, brother. God bless you.
Thank y'all for tuning in. Until next time.
I'm
no more talk.